What's up, guys? Welcome back to 0xResearch. Thank you for joining us today. Danny,
Welcome.
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Boccaccio?
I'm very good as well. I want to see. No,
He doesn't like the big faces.
I don't like the big ones.
He hates that. We do that over on Lightspeed, not the.
Do you?
Yeah, we do the big ones.
I find it a little awkward and a little jarring, to be honest.
Yeah, I will say when it's 3, like 1, 2, 3 next to each other, it's weird. But if the 2, I don't mind the 2.
Yeah, we'll just keep it this way. That's fine. I wanted to share lots of.
They want to see your face,
Yeah,
they want to see the hairline.
They want to see my face, but we'll find out. How you doing, Danny? How's your? I feel like you weren't on here the last pod. Did we do a Happy New Year with you yet on the new pod or not yet?
I've been on. Yeah, we're in. Who did we have on? We had Arrow.
Yeah, we
had
did
Arrow
have
on. Yeah.
That's true.
We chatted with them.
So this episode is going to be a bit of a different style, particularly because Danny was actually away last week at our Blockworks off-site, not on-site. So I think it might make most sense since Danny, you didn't have a lot of time to do research. I assume you mostly spent your time at the beach and talking to the team. I think it might make sense for us to do a little roundup of what happened, and then maybe it's also a good way to enter the year properly, right? I feel like most of the episodes we did were like very targeted. We did Aerodrome, obviously talked about Aerodrome. We did Felix, obviously talked about Felix, but we really haven't. A lot of stuff has happened over the past few weeks, so maybe it's a good time to feel like teams are finally off of that funk of like, end of December, early January. Teams also have like real humans working in them, so they take some time off. Projects get pushed to the new year, and now we're finally at that stage where they're releasing new stuff, either tokens in the case of Lighter, which I guess happened last year, but new news about them is coming out, and then Pump has a new update, and then also even large non-crypto products like Twitter are releasing new features which affect crypto, obviously. So I think we should talk about those, unless you have anything else urgently that you want to discuss.
No, nothing urgent.
Very good.
Let's get into it, man.
Okay.
Where do you want to go?
I guess let's start it off with Lighter. This is something that broke, I would say, both of our hearts a little bit. I don't know when you longed it, but I was long for a while, and then it went up, and then it started to go down. And I guess like I want to share a few things, and the main one being I want to talk about, I guess, like their stats in terms of perps. So first, to start us off, I want to share how much they've bought back, which I feel like not a lot of people look into this one, but they bought back around 1.4 mil lit, which is like 2.8 mil in dollars. This is since December 29th, so 2.8 mil divided by 17 is their daily buyback level, which is actually quite significant. But the issue here is that now, what was the main thing with Lighter was people were worried that it would lose revenue and fees and market share. And I feel like it has. So 21st of November is the highest it's been. It actually rebounded in October quite well, like post 1010. So it like kept growing. And then now we're at 1.2 mil per week. Let's do dailies. I feel a better like 150K, 150K, 200K, 64K. This was like, I think, the bottom, to be honest with you. And then holders revenue is going up because they're buying back with the fees, but I think they're just using some of the past fees done. And I guess like two questions on my mind is one, oh, there we go. How do you see the lighter stuff? First of all, you're not a big perps trader, so maybe like it's good to ask if you have a preference in terms of the protocols that you have used previously, or is it more like a farming type of thing for you, or what you see? Like, what was your case for the lighter buy, and then what do you want to see going forward, and what do you not want to go forward?
So I'm not a perps trader, so I'm not long or short it via perps, but I have lighter spot. Shout out Blockworks disclosures. You can actually, it's not on there yet because I think I bought it maybe right into the new year. But I think for me, and I wish I had the chart, but I think there's a broader thing here of perps volume across the board has been declining. So like you could pull up the hype perps volume chart, and like that's down from since July or August in basically a straight line as well. I think naturally like post launch there is probably some activity that's got to drain out. If there were just raw like, hey, I'm farming this, and now there's people farming like what variational, and there's all these perp dexes, right? I'm sure you know the names that the farmers kind of jump from one to the next. I think I do think the thing that I've liked about the lighter team that I've seen is that they seem to be. You've been on the opposite side of this from me, actually, in previous conversations, but I think they are fast shippers. They've been relatively clear in terms of kind of like where they want to take the product, and I think they've been pretty quick to do so. Like I know that the mobile app just dropped. Was that this week or last week? Like pretty recently here. And that's something that I'm excited to see. I guess what I would say, generally speaking, of perps is like I'm not a perps user, but I think the category, I see there's potentially still a ton of value there going into the future, and so I'm not bearish hyperliquid by any means, but I think I just like what I see out of this kind of like smaller team or competitor. But I could see both of them doing well into the future here. I think I just like this concept of, I think there's a difference here in terms of we're going to build it all ourselves, or we're going to kind of build some like a layer and then, have the ecosystem sort of build on top of that with sort of like alignment around the token. I think both models can work. But I've just been largely interested by like kind of what I've just seen from their messaging around, hey, we're going to build out these products, and then month after month those products come out, and they've continued to ship that. And I think the fact that they've switched to this sort of like Robinhood style model with zero fee trading, and they make the fees via the API or whatever you want to call it. It's a PFOF model, largely speaking, or simply put, I think can be effective. And so in my mind, like the longer term implications of like who's going to be really successful here is like who builds a really good platform, like more broadly speaking. Robinhood is not like purely successful just because of the options. It's like because people go there to trade options, and they put their cash there, and they earn interest on that cash, and they have XYZ, all these other different programs, all these other things kind of tied together. And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing for perps. You want to see this wide expansion into the equity perps, forex, commodities, offering yield, offering interest, cash equivalents, all these things.
You really want to become the product layer on that end, right? Like I guess you want to really productize it as much as possible, the way that the others have done. Shonda released an article about this. I guess he like mostly covered Hyperliquid in this one, and it was about NASDAQ versus Robinhood. I feel like we've already discussed this with you as well, but like the models, and it really does seem a bit like Hyperliquid's taking the NASDAQ model, although some people like to say they're taking the AWS of liquidity. I don't know how reasonable of a take that is. And you can see this like kind of debate that they have within themselves as well. Oftentimes they'll just ship a feature that like the BLP, which is probably something that should have been outsourced realistically. If you're outsourcing a lot of things, like that's also kind of a thing that you could have outsourced, or like you could have used, I don't know, Felix and do like a hyper EVM hypercore type of thing. I'm not smart enough in terms of margin and cross collateral systems and figuring out how that would have worked, but that would have, to me, would have seemed reasonable. And on the other hand, you obviously see like them using HIP3, and then spot markets are obviously by unit. So they have this like, I think, internal debate on how they should approach it. Versus Lighter very clearly seems to be like, we will just build everything in house. Hyperliquid still doesn't have a mobile app, although their progressive web app using Safari on the iPhone is not bad. I've used it. It's not horrible.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal experience, but it's not a bad experience. I guess like in terms of maybe like what you mentioned, which is that perps have been in general like declined since July. I think that is the case. It seems that, however, post like leading into launch December 14th, token launch December 29th, that week was the last week that Lighter had an edge on Hyperliquid in terms of volumes. And then following that, we very clearly see Lighter volumes drop off below, in terms of market share, below Hyperliquid. Nevertheless, it is still the second largest perps protocol by volume. EdgeX is actually third, but I think they have some volume discrepancies in terms of like, I don't know how real some of it is. And then it's followed by Extended and Paradex, which are two other names that are like frequently mentioned. Yeah. In terms of open interest, it's still not a competition, but I think this is like largely expected. And one of the arguments is people make against Lighter is that because it's zero fees, it's like it doesn't matter that much. The fact that there is a lot of volume. I don't know how much I agree with that because I don't really know their pricing model. Open interest is definitely the one that matters the most, but if market makers are able to make money on the volume that they're generating, then I imagine they would still pay for it. Something to look into, I guess, like on our end.
I think the model, like the mindset I have around it is, if they, given the pricing model and the fee model, like I would imagine the meaningful thing is to lean into this, like, you know, non-toxic retail flow. So like doing the mobile app and just getting kind of like regular users in there trading. And as that type of non-toxic volume shows up, then, you know, market makers will be, they're happy to step in and sort of like make trades for that type of activity. And I imagine it's easy for them to segment it out as a platform, right? Because you have a clear differentiation between like free retail users kind of like hitting the app or the front end versus the API access addresses. So I think it gives them a very simple way to sort of like, you know, what type of flow they're going after.
Yeah, and then maybe one more thing to look over at this point is only around 37% of the airdrop is still being held, and 82% has decreased. Now, these figures are always kind of wrong because they count transfers as sales, just because of the way, like, it looks at address 1 as the original holder. If that address 1 doesn't hold the token anymore, it's counted as sale. Obviously not the case. That could be like I transferred my tokens from one wallet to another, and it would have counted me as a sale. But regardless of that, it does seem like 82%. Now, there is this general approach to airdrops, which is above 80%. If it's been decreased, that's probably like the time you want to look into the token if you're interested in it. Hasn't always been the case, especially in the case of Hyperliquid. I think it was like much less the sales initially, and then that's why like people had to keep buying as it went up. But general rule of thumb, I think, has been 80% or like 65 to 70%, you start looking into it. I avoided, I not avoided, but I didn't do this, and I was just like, yeah, fuck it, 30% change, definitely that's good. I don't know if anybody else will sell. Mistake in hindsight. But yeah, I think we'll see. Mobile app, I don't know how many users use mobile apps for perps, especially if like I don't use mobile apps for perps. Maybe that's because I haven't found a good mobile app for perps though. So, maybe I should be using them. Yeah, I don't have any other
I think it's an inevitable thing though. We've talked about mobile a lot, and it's like this industry, I think not just perps, but like everything is, we've seen it with like, Phantom and wallets, like those have become really successful. And like, I would imagine that more of your net new kind of like onboard to crypto for the first time people are probably like trading or like holding coins on a mobile wallet on their phone, and they are not like downloading Rabby on their browser and buying an ETH and putting it there and going through those extra steps. So I just see it as a natural trend that more of this stuff is, but certainly like for the retail crowd anyway.
Yeah, and I think people like clearly people don't have an issue with trading on their phone, as we've seen through the proliferation of Telegram bots. I don't know how much of that was on mobile, to be honest with you. I don't know if you can track it. I'm sure some team has kept internal data about it, like BonkBot or something. And if they have, and if they end up hearing this segment, please share it so that we can know. But like, I was also using that on my laptop quite a bit, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah, I guess since a bunch of them they're within Telegram, you can use Telegram in many places. But I'd imagine a bunch of it was happening on mobile as well.
Yeah. Next up, the economy of entire countries being ruined by. As some background, maybe I can. Past few weeks have been, now this concept of CT has changed so drastically. It used to be like a small niche group, and then it grew, and then everybody hated them because they made a butt ton of money on Bored Apes and whatnot, and then it like everybody started mocking it with FTX. And then recently, I would say like the most recent change has been that it's grown, but I guess like most of the internet has grown like this. Like it's grown. I think almost everybody always expected a lot of CT to be bought, but like now it's very apparent how much of it is botted activity. And I guess the large driver has been Kaito and the other InfoFi applications. Now, I don't really understand why this has been such a big driver. I haven't looked into the way that Kaito works in a very long time. And that being like, I was promised an airdrop, I got the airdrop, I sold the airdrop, and then I stopped looking at Kaito. We've covered Kaito at Blockworks Research a few times, but I think mostly we've been interested in the capital formation aspect of it, specifically like their Launchpad platform. First question to you is, can you I don't know how much you've looked at it as well, to be fair, but why do you think so many people were just botting for Kaito? Do they get allocations? Do they get tokens?
Yeah.
How does it work?
It's both. For what I understand, shout out to Kunal on the research team. A part of the ICO platform that they have was when they would do sales or raises, they had some mechanics around, if you have Kaito tokens staked, then maybe you get some allocation. But also, I think if you're like an active yapper or whatever, that also maybe played into like sort of allocations that you could get into some of the sales that they hosted on the platform. So there's some value there. But then of course, like, I mean, I think everyone knows that like, when tokens like do the YAP leaderboards and then they launch the token, they were giving some allocation to the people kind of farming that. I think the reason that pops off so heavily and like becomes so botted is because while it's probably for most of these things, like not a meaningful amount of money to like a first world type of person with maybe a full-time job salary, like, maybe a 50 or a couple $100 is pretty meaningful in, Africa, Southeast Asia, like various countries around the world where, you might be earning like a wage or a salary by just spamming posts on Twitter, which is very low effort. I think I forget what it was. Somebody posted a chart of the breakdown, like a pie chart of the countries, like the regions where maybe a lot of these accounts were
Oh
located.
yeah, let me find it.
And I think that kind of confirmed that idea to some extent, like a lot of African and Southeast Asian representation there, which I think it just makes sense from if you can go online and earn some money that like somebody in America or Europe does not care to do, then you're gonna go ahead and do it. Oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
26% from Nigeria, actually 12% from United States, which is kind of crazy. But I imagine a lot of that is VPN botting. 8% from Africa, 2.5% from Turkey. Very good.
But yeah, I think it's just an imbalance in terms of the value of those drops compared to the effort, and like who that is valuable to, and so that you get a lot of people who are willing to spam that.
Yeah,
but
and then
I think it's interesting that they took this particular approach around like those apps specifically, right? Like it's a very specific, like, okay, we basically have blacklisted this app, but that it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen again in a different form, right? Like they're gonna have to, maybe we won't call it InfoFi, but if some other app comes up that like incentivizes people to spam replies to things, they'll have to go out and blacklist again. So it's not really like an actual solution to bots. No. It's just like hey, we don't like this activity of this app. We're killing this app.
Yeah, completely agreed. And the issue that they promote, like Nikita gets upset about all of these things, but he clearly has the power to promote and demote things, right? And like it can't be that difficult to decide on how an activity is generated. Like if it is through agents, surely you can tell that. Like there has to be some way to tell it, and you can ban that or you can demote that. Also, this is like,
I wonder to what extent, like I have a thought here just to interject on, is like on the agent piece and the LLM piece is like how much of this do they have conflicting incentives around, like such that views from the slot bots like pumps the ad numbers to where it's like, well, we don't actually want to get rid of them because think about all the think about all the ad rev from the sponsors, but then it's like, okay, at some point it starts to really deteriorate the experience.
Yeah. I read this book called Subprime Attention Crisis, and it's like the guy tries to compare advertising revenue, specifically digital advertising revenue, to the subprime mortgage crisis. Not a good comparison, but one thing that he discusses quite a bit is like this idea of digital ads clearly not being useful. Like how many ads do you see per day versus like how many are caught in some ad blocker system that you've set up, right? But like they pay for, clearly you're trying to avoid them and I'm trying to avoid them and everyone's trying to avoid them, and clearly like Twitter is boosting the views and the engagement numbers because of, like you said, these conflicting incentives, such that, I mean, the system, it's not like whatever 2008 as this guy was suggesting in the book, but it's clearly built on some form of shaky foundation. And Twitter's entire system is also kind of built on this shaky foundation. It's like they're trying to incentivize creator revenues, and then they're also like, obviously they're very happy if we're getting views, and they're very happy if people keep staying on the app. But the end result is that, and Ryan Connor would say, stated preference versus revealed preference in this scenario. But I haven't used Twitter in 2 months. Like I tweeted once or twice. I don't think a lot of people enjoy it. There's no alternative. I will give them that. Like there's clearly no alternative to Twitter right now. And there probably won't ever be an alternative that is not facing the same like structural issues of incentives and agents and AI and bots and how to monetize it, etc. But specifically in the terms of crypto Twitter, like you said, I don't ever see there being like a massive way to fix it, because there's also like, you can make a lot of money on Twitter by scamming and like by doing those scam advertising links, right? Because I can't imagine the cost per tweet is more than less than a penny or less than a cent. I don't know what the term is. And then but the payoff is potentially really high. So, and if you're just spamming tweets, that's good for the Twitter metrics. So like you said, like you're banning these guys specifically, but you can't ban everybody. And then the only way to actually ban everybody, or like at least ban a significant chunk, is by doing identity verification. Obviously something you don't want to do. And they started doing that. And then for Twitter Blue, you had to do identity verification, I think. Clearly it also hasn't worked out because there's tons of these bots that just have like verified Twitter. It's like clearly a scamming bot. It's like CZ Binance Real, and then it has like a organization badge. It's fake.
Yeah, it just, I think it fundamentally seems like an unsolvable problem, like to the design, in the sense that like there's money to be made for the website from them. You know, if you get thousands of bot accounts that are willing to pay a couple bucks a month so they don't get booted from the site, then that's free money. You know, that's some good money for the business. As a user, I mean, people say this over and over, but like if you don't want to see slop, then you have to be very persistent about blocking and muting accounts and like muting words, and that's just like the only way to go about it. And you have to like be very like careful about like every post that you click on or engage with, because that's how all these apps work nowadays. Is like they're hyper sensitive to like, oh, he clicked on this and he looked at it for 15 seconds. Let's serve him 1,000 more of those, because that's going to keep their eyeballs on the screen. So you have to be like very, I don't know. It's actually funny that the way to like most effectively use these apps is like the inverse of what they're designed around, right? Like they want people to glaze over and just scroll through shit and like stare at it all day. And like, if you really wanted to like use it for whatever your purposes are, like stay up to date on things, then you have to be very like aware of what you're looking at and kind of keeping up to date with, and blocking stuff that you don't want to see.
Yeah, that's door. Sorry. One thing here is you can use that. I have one extension that's like Twitter for you remover, which is pretty good. But even without that, even with that, I don't think it's very good. Still, it's just all the interesting people are off it. Everybody's on Substack now, or like they're on Telegram. Like anybody whose views I cared about are like trying to write more long form stuff, which I am actually quite happy about, because I think they end up developing their writing more, versus like before you'd have to reach out to them and be like, hey, what do you mean by X sentence? But now they're like kind of writing it out.
But I think this is kind of a timeless problem. Like if you think through like kind of the old telephone age, it's like you get, you know, spam calls to your phone number, and like you just like you have to like block numbers. And then in the email age, it's like you get a bunch of like crap, like dog shit in your email and like crap, and you have to like constantly unsubscribe from stuff that you don't want to see, and like, you know, get stuff off of your lists. And like in the age of social media, it's the exact same thing of like they're gonna spam you with countless and like constant ads, and you have to like be very like cleansing of your feed. And I think the same happens for all of these platforms. So like even if people they're going over to Substack or they're going over to Telegram for private chats and things like all of these platforms are going to try to find new ways to monetize, and you'll see a lot of those same strategies like end up evolving, I think. So it's a constant thing to kind of work through.
Yeah, I guess like last thing on this is the issue is that social media is something that a lot of people end up spending 8 to 10 hours a day on, versus you can't really check your email for 10 hours a day. Like I'm sure there's one person in the world that's like, oh, actually I'm actually on my email like 6 hours a day, but realistically you can't. Phone back in the day, you probably can. One thing that I got this like dumb phone, you know, like the clicking ones. And I think somebody sold my data that I bought it, because the moment that I got it, I started getting scam calls. And then I thought about it, and it's like only old people get dumb phones. So they were like constantly calling me and be like, oh, like the police are after you. You need to give us money. I was like, fuck you, dude.
Wire us $100,000 immediately.
Yeah. I guess social media is an unsolvable problem. What do you think about, very good segue coming, this being an unsolvable problem for Kaito. So they recently announced that they're sunsetting their Yaps program, which is what was the problem, and they're going to offer a more curated marketing experience, being that they will essentially connect people to key opinion leaders that they have vetted and know, instead of allowing for this, like, I feel like their pitch was like, anybody can become an influencer if they have enough yaps, and then allowing for that, versus now they're like gonna be, as they say, closer to a tier-based traditional marketing platform, with, I guess, like analytics tools and stuff. First of all, clearly, like, Cookie announced something similar. Cookie's the other InfoFi platform. Clearly, there was some discussion beforehand with Twitter, which I think makes sense, because I imagine these guys are like massive enterprise level customers for Twitter. Marketing agency, I don't know the business around it at all, but now that it has officially become a marketing agency, maybe something that we need to write an update on at Blockworks Research, and see how this can be like a product on their end. Because we did cover Kaito before, and like I said, mostly capital side. But
I have thoughts here, like, already. When we talked about it originally, I mean, this was like a year ago now, I think, when we talked about Kaito originally, when they launched the token and all that. I had thought in my head that was kind of it. Like, it seemed like that was the entire point at some point, was to basically become like this, disintermediate marketing agencies, and just kind of have like this platform where people just, they shove their info in there, and teams can go and run, guerrilla marketing campaigns, and just, you onboard 100 KOLs really easily. You can like pick out your niches and your categories and all that. I don't know whether, like you say, like, I'm not a marketing campaign guy. I don't know if a platform specifically like that already exists. It might not. Maybe these teams do have to just like go around and like DM people on Instagram and Twitter, and it's a pain in the ass. So there might actually be like a reasonable product niche to fill there. And that's kind of where I thought this platform was headed. So it'd be interesting to see if that works out more broadly, like beyond just crypto, because I would imagine that's more than just a crypto thing. That's all marketing these days is, you get TikTok influencers and you get Instagram influencers to promote your products.
Yeah, I will say, I think this could be a really good business for like 8 people, not as like a publicly traded token. Does that make sense? Like a very crypto native marketing agency where you actually understand like whose thoughts have value, and like who you want to get involved in XYZ, and what platforms you want to hit and stuff. I think that would be like potentially very valuable. But first of all, I don't know the fee structure of how a marketing agency works. So like, I might just be talking out of my ass here, but assuming like a 5 to 10% thing, I don't know if there's enough tokens out there, enough protocols out there that can cover that, and that will use Kaito, and that would make Kaito's valuation reasonable. They do have the launch pad. I have to take a look at that. But I guess like on that note, we did see a pretty significant, and this was, I'm going to show Ian here. I know he's watching as well, so he'll probably be happy, but this was
nice.
Like on the Nikita tweet, and it's just like insta down to, I think, 560 mil. I don't know what it's at right now. I can check. Yeah, still down. Yeah, still around the same price. So like 550 mil. Quite hefty for a marketing agency at the FTV. And I know our very own Matt Costa was also looking into some potential pre-decision unstakings as well.
Yeah, there was a big unstaking block that was unstaked. Was it before the announcement or at the announcement?
Yeah.
Like very, very timely. So there was certainly some heads up.
4 days before the announcement.
Yeah.
So
it's not a good look.
It might be nothing though. The thing is that we don't know. So
could be nothing. Very timely.
Could be nothing. Just like somebody got really lucky.
Sometimes we can call, we can call it is what it is.
Yeah. Talking about calls, call out. Ryan's gonna be so upset if I keep doing the news bit. I don't get this. You have to explain this to me, because even though you are significantly older than me, and I'm Gen Z and you're a millennial.
Bro, significantly. What the hell is that? Like a few years, maybe?
Yeah. Um,
Okay, yeah, keep going.
is this a big thing? Like okay, I know about Cupsy and
What are your thoughts on paid alpha groups, huh?
on FNFs, friends and family groups.
I just think
love them.
here. This is my first thought was like, oh, nice. They're disintermediating all of the join my paid group. You know, it's like you don't have a paid group anymore. You just go on Pump and you just make your token calls directly to your followers there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is like that meaningful. I think it's more of just like there's plenty of these accounts who, buy coins and then they like talk about them on Twitter or maybe like in Telegram chats. So I guess now there's just a direct way to buy and it automatically gets called. But also if you're trading in a doxed address on chain, then everybody knows what you're buying already anyway. So I'm not. I think it's more of just like it's a social feature for people who are trading memes, which I think is good. Like I don't know, in terms of the game aspect of it, you've got people trading these coins and like sending them to each other in TG. So presumably, if you're using the Pump app, it's like a little more convenient. Of you buy the thing, you can make a call. It goes directly to your friends. A bunch of apps have played with this, right? Like Tensor played with this. I think Bags and like FOMO and a couple of those, like they all have like their own. You can have your little like
FOMO?
Group chats. I have not used it, but I've kind of like I've used it, but I've not used it. If that means anything.
You haven't
like
actively
gone through the flow,
it,
but I've not. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I pulled this up. Pump's revenues are actually kind of up. I mean, obviously it's been 2 days, so it's like it's not a very significant. But was that like around 1 mil the past like late December? Now it's at 1.8, 1.6. So it's been steadily going up.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about it. We had there's like a few like White Whale went to 200 million, and so people are gambling. A coin goes up, and then everyone's like, oh, it's it's time to gamble on whatever the meta is.
Trenches are back.
There's a little bit of a Claude. There's a little bit of a Claude code meta, from what I understand.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw
they're doing AI again
because it immediately mimics like past stuff, like AI agent stuff.
Yeah,
because I swear somebody sent a coin in a chat today and was like, "Oh, this one has 13,000 GitHub stars."
Yeah, dude, I saw the GitHub star chart and I was like, "Man, we're actually just rerunning."
Didn't we just do this? Like we did. I swear to God, it's so. Call outs, I don't really get. I'm sure that somebody will make some comparison to eToro and copy trading and like how it's generated a lot of revenue for them, or is it Webull? I don't know. Whatever, one of the
Webull.
two.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah, this will go up. I'm sure it can. It does, like, it is good to see that. I think most of the token launches are still happening through Pump, or it's at least like not dying out when there's like, I think you would be concerned if that 900K or 1 million did not go up to 1.8 mil like over the past few days, given that there is more activity. Yeah, White Whale did fine. There's another one. James Christoph is a lot more active in group chats, which always means that there's tokens launching.
Yeah.
I mean, just sending me dog shit to buy. But yeah, how do you... It's still not there. I don't think it'll come back.
I think that's an idea that I think many people have. Like, yeah, I think you meant, Webull, eToro, like these other platforms, you see it. I think even Robinhood as well, they've pre-announced some social platform where you can like share your trades as well. I think it's an idea that everyone thinks is a slam dunk somehow, but no one has really done it. And like all of that stuff still just happens on the social media platforms where people interact already. It's, instead of using some app that's specifically designed to like, hey, I just did this trade. It's like, oh, you talk to some guys on Discord, or you talk to them on Telegram, or you talk to them just, texts or whatever. Like you just send it, you send it via the normal ways that you communicate. That being said, I'm sure there's some people like who will use these. They'll be early adopters, but I don't know, we just haven't really seen it. Like everyone thinks this is like a slam dunk somehow, and it just hasn't really like exploded and been like a super viral thing for anyone take on it.
Yeah, I get why they're exploring it though, because it like leads to vendor lock-in at that point if everybody's calling it.
Yeah.
Unironically, I guess like Friendtech was the most successful guys to do it because they actually make quite a bit of money, not for the intended purpose, but they did
Yeah.
make a decent chunk of money by only doing this. And they tried to do it. The app was horrible. I made money on it, which was nice. Um,
Yeah, I think it makes sense why a lot of these businesses want that to take off for them, because yeah, to your point, it's like, I mean, you make your users that much stickier. It probably promotes like even like a more of a flywheel of activity, right? Somebody posts a trade and then 10 more people like instantly take another trade. It probably kicks off more activity, leads to more revenue, but to be seen whether it actually works.
yeah. I guess big takeaway is that on my end, it is happy. It's just crazy that they don't tweet out for 6 months, right? So I guess I'm happy.
Yeah, that was the interesting part. It's like come out of silence to talk about calls, and then Elon tweets and says, "I'm gonna call a 14K market cap coin soon, so put me on notifications."
So funny. No, it's like
It's like, didn't we do this with? I feel like we did this with Jesse Pollock. I don't know that people actually want. I don't know if people want like, head of these products to just be like calling out random coins.
Yeah. Also, like if everybody's calling coins, there's no meaningfulness to calling coins. Like if Coinbase is listing every token, or if Binance is listing every token, and then there's no point in listening to then there's no Binance token pump, right? Because they're listing every fucking token, can't pump.
And the big problem is always it comes back to bots.
Yeah.
Just like the Twitter bots. Like if you're making explicit calls about something, then all of the bots that are set up to automatically snipe the ticker that you send are going to pump and dump the thing, and it ruins the experience for everyone else. So it's like a game that's already been, I don't know, I guess you could call it solved, in the sense that like, they'll snipe all the supply and then just slowly drip it onto the people who are manually pressing buttons afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a way around that, but there's not. We've tried so many of these like auction mechanisms, like in any form. I guess like meme coins didn't really try it that hard. Well, I guess like the
that's
entire
the problem with a
launch
live
process.
coin, right? Like it's a live thing, and so I just don't know that there's no way around it unless you're gatekeeping who can actually buy and sell in the first place.
Yeah, and even if you do try to gatekeep it, like Echo and Sonar are clearly doing a pretty good job at gatekeeping, but then you get CBB who ends up buying 15,000 KYCs from a small French village, pays them $200 each, and then just uses those to make an investment. So
it's certainly more of a problem due to the size of these things. Like if your favorite influencer calls Google, it doesn't matter because they're a multi-trillion-dollar company. Like they're not going to pump the stock. But if you're calling a 10K market cap coin, then one guy buys 5,000 and it's at 300K instantly.
Yeah. Although in crypto, it also is like, even if you are calling a multi-billion-dollar FTV project, sometimes it ends up pumping.
Sometimes there's no liquidity in the thing.
Liquidity is so bad. Which was it? There was something that's like, I can't talk about this token, but there are like, I just realized, I can't talk about this token, but there are some tokens that are like, oh, so funny. It's like $600 million market cap. On-chain liquidity is 4.5K. What are you doing? Last up, we're hitting all of the big ones today. I realize I'm not sharing it on my screen. There we go. Oh, awkward. Pepper is one of my favorite Twitter guys. And he talked about this thing called Poly Market Traders is the worst account to follow. All they do is pitch. And I saw this thing that's like wildest mispricing. You're risking $0.08 to make $1. This one is not so bad because this one's clearly just gambling. But the funniest one that I saw was creation of this, and Tulip King, my GOAT, also talks about this. It's creation of these prediction market bonds. And basically, you take this thing that is guaranteed to happen and it's only trading at like a 97%, and you just capture that 3%. And if you do this theoretically, now they always use the word theoretically, which I really appreciate, because clearly in practice it might be different. Theoretically, you could make upwards of like 40% APR per year, guaranteed. This ties into this general thing that I've seen James be very angry about, and it's the promotion of prediction markets as financial platforms, as opposed to, I would argue, prediction market is a very good way of saying betting platform. It is in its like purest form a betting. In fact, I would say it's the purest betting platform that there's out there. Huh?
Good branding.
Right? It's very good branding. It's fantastic branding. And then recently they actually did this ad, and a lot of people were upset about it. Well, they got sued over it, so I guess a lot of people were very upset about it. And it was like, it was on TikTok, and it's a Kalshi ad, and it's this girl saying, "I'm unable to pay my rent this month, but I ended up hitting like a couple wins on Kalshi, so now I got money," or something TikTok speak, some form of Zoom or TikTok speak. They got sued over this, clearly. And I think the language was like investment. I was able to make a few like investments or like prediction investments or something. So they got sued over this. I'm not sure. Nobody quote me on this. And if anybody from Kalshi is listening, I think it was a bad advertisement, but good luck. And I might have been wrong about the language. Anyway, yeah, how do you see these guys position themselves going forward? They're getting some heat over this. How do you see like all of this shape up? What are your opinions on prediction markets?
Here, wait. We need to have the source.
What is the source? Oh, here, let me show this. Oh, there we go. Okay. I was about to pay my rent, but I got 2 years of rent through Kalshi's predictions. It's amazing. So it's not promoting it it's not saying it's an investment, but the official law document says Kalshi TikTok ad portraying Kalshi as a financial tool. So I was not wrong, but I was kind of wrong. So I apologize to Kalshi for saying that they said it was an investment. They did not say it was an investment, but the legal document said that they were promoting it as a prediction tool.
Yeah. I agree with James on a lot of this. Like, I think, and the part of it is just like the way the strategies around this guerrilla marketing, like get a bunch of KOLs who aren't professionals to just like make statements. I don't know if that's like a legal loophole in the sense that like you can just have people who like don't understand anything about risk or finance just being like, yeah, it's like free money. Like you can just take all these like trades that give you 0.01% when you're right, and you stack all of those over the whole year, and then you make 20% free risk-free money on your Kalshi gambles. It's like, okay, no, that's not how it works. If you're going all in every bet, then if any one of those turns out to be wrong, you lose all of your money. So it's not anything like holding a bond, in the sense that a bond doesn't instantly go to zero if you're on like a binary outcome necessarily. Unless, the one binary outcome is like your country collapses. But if you're taking thousands of binary, option trades in a year, then like any one of those could be wrong unexpectedly, and you lose the entire stack there, if that's kind of your strategy. I do think, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that like that is the approach, but I guess I get where I see where these teams, Polymarket and Kalshi, are coming from, because I think they both genuinely believe that they need to like, we need to do whatever we can right now so that like we end up winning this like little war or race over the future of like gambling, basically. Because even the prior, the DraftKings and the FanDuels, like they had a long, like several years of, let's crank all the promotions. Like we need to make sure we can burn a shit ton of money. It doesn't matter. We need to like get all of the gamblers onto our platform, get them like locked in so that we can like, win for the next decade or whatever. And I feel like we're seeing kind of a similar thing here for the prediction markets.
Yeah. Yeah. For context, like I don't think people should not be able to gamble or bet. If you want to gamble or bet, you should be more than welcome. I do think that it is a bit risky to, and I think calcium polymarket are not, I don't know how the dynamics with the influencers work, but I would say there are a lot of influencers out there that are going out and writing these. And I imagine like part of it is because they want publicity. And this kind of ties into the general like social media incentive structures, but like there is a large portion of influencers out there who are writing these like long, thoughtful posts about the bond structure, or Tulip King had like a few funny ones actually, but like, and in theory,
You
right?
can become the president. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the president one where you're like,
You bet no on yourself becoming the president with a sufficient amount of money, and then some, people will come and make it happen for you, basically.
in theory, these are very, very like, this is like, Danny, the thing is that you never spent time in this form of academia because you have like a STEM background, right? But like I spent some of my time doing humanities and the arts and the letters, and like oftentimes you'll read something and sometimes it'll be like kind of like this, and I think it's like a very academic mindset to say, oh, like logically this works, therefore it'll work in real life. And it's like the same thing as like all of the economics field assuming that like consumers behave rationally. It's like, yeah, I guess like technically, but also there's people spending like 36 grand on candles a month, so it's like it doesn't really work very well.
Yeah.
And like all of those arguments, but the issue is that I guess like when not Tulip King, I don't want to isolate him specifically. So when somebody writes like, oh, you can build a bond around this, and maybe they're even suggesting like some form of hedging strategy such that you don't get fucked if it goes to zero. It's, first of all, it's a very complex thing to build if you were going to do hedging, but also people are not going to hedge. And also, even if they are going to hedge, I don't think they're going to know how to. And people never really like take that double like step of thinking of saying like, oh, I should do this, and then they're like, oh, like, well, what if it doesn't work out, etc. And if you have like people promoting this because it's going to get them publicity, or it's going to get them bookmarks, or it's going to get them some deal, then it's like, then you're getting in a kind of a tricky situation. And there definitely needs to be like, I think a lot of people do not like the SEC and regulators, but I will say one thing: there definitely needs to be some form of reform around how influencers can show that they're getting paid or not paid, or like if how much money they're making through certain things. Like, I don't think Kalshi and Polymarket are paying a lot of these people. And I'm like not at all putting the pressure on them and saying, oh, you're paying.
And that's been an issue in the past as well.
Like exchanges as well, decentralized protocols as well. Like they're suggesting building out these complex strategies sometimes, and sometimes even like very non-nefarious things like airdrops. People will say, oh, you might get an airdrop about this, you should use it. And then it's like what they're telling people to use is like either something that isn't audited and like is actually quite complex smart contract risk that might arise from it, or it's like a protocol that in itself might lose money. I don't know. I think it's like, it's probably fine if you have 15 followers and it's all your like friends and you're just talking to them and as a diary, but
yeah,
something to consider. Like going forward, I don't know what the solution is. I guess the solution is probably never. We need a lot of regulation, but maybe a little bit.
I think it's always iffy for me when you get a person in a position of an influencer, whatever, a celebrity, who cares? It doesn't matter who they are, but they have people who will basically do whatever they say. As weird as that sounds, like I think to your point, like there's a lot of like economic theory about people being rational actors, and I think anyone who lives in the real world knows that the average person is incredibly irrational, and does not think about anything like logically before making a decision. So I think when you just combine that with the fact that people will take any financial product and say, wow, risk-free 30% per year, risk-free 5x, like, you just get it, you're just opening the door for people to just lose their money immediately on something that they were kind of led to believe was going to make them a ton of money. And this isn't like a new problem. I think we see this
I mean, we
over
had
and
this with
over, and
Anchor.
it's just greed and stupidity kind of like fuel that in a lot of cases. But certainly like the framing here of it's quite literally a gambling product, but then to frame it as like a lot of this like guerrilla marketing, framing it as like risk-free opportunity in some scenarios is just, that's a bit goofy. Let's just admit
Yeah,
that it's goofy.
yeah, it is a bit goofy,
We can
and
be
like,
honest. We can be honest that it's, if you want to, it's like it's a better form of gambling. Like maybe it opens up new types of
that
markets
is
that were
the yeah.
never, there were markets that were never previously tradable, and like now you can gamble on those too, and like that might be fun for you if you want to gamble on, the weather, or like, strikes on countries and things like that. But
Yeah, but I mean, I think that is like actually quite interesting because there's this now way for you and I to like realistically, we're not gonna like short a country's bonds if we think that they're like gonna be insolvent, right? Or whatever, like complex stuff like that. Either you don't have the relationship, you don't have like the tools to do it, you don't have the size to do it. Um, but this does open up. So like that kind of stuff is the interesting thing. Like and the
yeah,
potentially like allowing I don't know if the term prosumer, maybe prosumers, yeah, like to bet on interesting outcomes in a because so far I think the only thing that you can reliably bet on is like politicians. This is without polymarket and calcium prediction markets. Like you could bet on politicians and you could bet on sports, but you're opening up like this whole new venue of betting and predictions that are actually quite interesting. And then I don't even see there being a reason to go out there and say this is risk free
I think
because
they're
what ends up
probably
happening is go ahead.
they're trying to operate in this line, I think, where they're trying to secure this regulatory advantage by running this like, hey, it's not a gambling app, it's predictions. This is different. Like these are, it's a different type of contract, it's a different type of this or that. Like therefore, it shouldn't be regulated in the same way that gambling or like these types of like betting contracts have been regulated in the past. And maybe the contracts are technically different, like whatever. The activity is certainly still gambling. So I think they have to kind of like, they have to, in some sense, sort of like take on that air of this isn't necessarily gambling. This is like, oh, you can be really smart and you can predict and like you can make money off of predicting. And like that can be, it's like operating within the stock market. It's, it's very
Yeah,
professional. To sort of run that line of thinking to regulators around, no, it's not a gambling app. Like, of course it's not. We shouldn't be treated like a gambling app. When in reality, a lot of the activity is gambling. So
yeah.
I think
But I
that's a
guess
line
you
that they're
could
trying to
make that
toe.
about 0 day options as well. Like realistically, a lot of the activity is gambling, especially from the retail side.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how to classify things. But I guess if you can make that argument, you can probably make like both of those things can be true, right? Like some people use the product for gambling, and also some people use it for as a legitimate like financial thing. Maybe not investment in the way that like I don't know, putting some money away into like an ETF is, but it
Yeah.
is in an extent a financial product in that sense, but also a gambling product in another sense. Like
Yeah.
very clearly, the sports side is a gambling product. I would say it's not a
It's definitely
financial
just more of like what the entrenched sort of laws are around the types of products. So like if gambling apps are prohibited in a lot of states, like if mobile gambling apps are prohibited in 20 states, then it's like, well, we don't want to be a mobile
Yeah,
gambling app because we want people to trade this everywhere. So we have to be something else. So we have to frame it as something else and then fight
yeah,
that in court.
yeah. Maybe it's about like not offering certain markets in certain jurisdictions, but they make a lot of their money on sports markets, so it would be difficult for them.
Yeah.
It is like I don't know. We'll see how it resolves. This whole thing, I imagine they have quite a few years for prediction markets to actually get proper regulation. It does like
Yeah.
crypto's just starting to get it. Um, and then I don't know if we have time to cover that today. But do you want to quickly chat about the bill? I kind of took a look at it.
Let's maybe let's save it and maybe there'll be more to chat about
Yeah,
next
because they're
time.
making
We don't have to rush it in. Because I think there's going to be more development here. Like I think there's some active conversation around, will stablecoins be able to pass back yield? How is that going to shake
Tokenized
out?
equities is the big one.
Yeah, that as well.
Big one. Okay. Danny, always a pleasure. To our listeners, I know I didn't get to anybody's comments today, especially Ian, who's been spamming comments, but I didn't get to see them because the app didn't show them to us. But next time, I'm sure we'll bring some of them up. And to the rest of our listeners who are normal and can be trusted, thank you so much for listening and joining us for this. Danny, anything you want to share?
I think if Ian was watching, he would have definitely been saying something like Blockworks data everywhere. Like the true Blockworks Chad and lover that he is. I'm sure of it.
I also think so. Okay, perfect. Great. Have a good one, guys.
See you guys. Catch you next week.